for this week, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about ways to recalculate whenever we're having those reactions that we feel are unproductive or we have uncharacteristic reactions. So when I first learned this training, it was actually called Check Your Playbook, but I decided to retitle it with doing this piece of it because I like the idea of recalculating. Because when you think about recalculating, we think about a GPS and we think about going on a trip. And when you take a slight wrong turn or you take a slight turn in the opposite direction of the way you want to go, it's going to say what? Recalculating, recalculating. And so if we're thinking about it in those terms, when we have these reactions, whether they're emotional or they're physical reactions to an activating event, sometimes we need to recalculate because we found it's unproductive. We found that it's uncharacteristic of ourselves. We also have to think about what influences those patterns and reactions. So remember how I used the analogy last week of that photo album and what's in our brain that impacts it. So think about that. If we're looking at our brain, we see all of these words kind of floating around: our family, our culture, reactions in similar situations. Is it the way I just always do it? Is it the way that I always respond in those situations or typically respond? Our values, our beliefs, previous experiences, and then sometimes current circumstances, such as what we're all facing right now, new work routines, new life routines. And all of these factors play into, again, our thoughts and our beliefs and our reactions. So what route do we take? How do we tell ourselves to recalculate? What I have found in using this particular skill when it comes to resilience is it's looking back on a reaction after the fact. So perhaps something happened, I looked back on it and I went, that didn't go so well. Or, that was really effective. I should try that again in the future. When we think about our reactions, they're based on how we think the world should operate. And so I wanted to throw this out there. I remembered when I was going through my master's program in counseling, and I learned about Albert Ellis. And Albert Ellis is a psychologist that was most known for developing the rational emotive behavior therapy, an early form of cognitive behavioral therapy. And he talked about shoulds and musts. And one of the things I remembered reading, which made me laugh, and I like to share this, is we have to be aware of our shoulds and be cautious of our shoulds because we might end up shoulding all over ourselves. And so the thing about that is we have these irrational beliefs of what we think should or should not happen. And that then gets into our mindset of how we're going to, these patterns that we fall into based on those beliefs. And then we have to go, well, is that a realistic demand? Is that something, am I setting realistic expectations for myself? So let's take our current scenario. I know all of us are facing some of us have similar situations. Some of us have unique situations that are happening right now. Some of us are parents and we are now teachers of our children because school is canceled. And we might have little ones at home and we're juggling, trying to do our work at the same time and be that caring and thoughtful spouse. Or perhaps we have family members who we can't see and they live nearby us, but we can't see them because of the stay-at-home orders. So all of these things are happening currently for us. Those are current circumstances. And maybe our belief and our thought is we still have to do everything the same way we always did it. And yes, routine is important, just like what Greg was sharing with us. Routine is extremely important, but perhaps that routine looks a little different now. And so it's thinking about what you want to have happen and being aware of what works and what doesn't work. So I think, for many of us, I know for me, we've been in this stay-at-home order since mid-March, and I've had my kids home with me for I think we're going on 3 or 4 at this point. And so we've found a new group, we found a new routine. However, every day I think I have to stop and recalculate and go, is this working? Is this what we want to have happen? So the big question is, what is the most important thing right now? And as Greg was saying in his wellness tip for us, be present in the moment. There are so many shoulds floating around in our head. what is my role in this moment? So as I sit here and I'm meeting with all of my amazing colleagues, this is my role as a professional right now. I'm in my office doing that role. And later this afternoon, then I'll switch back into my role of being a mom and, you know, tending to making homemade Play-Doh and doing different things like that I've been trying to be creative with my own children, but thinking about what's important right now. So when we're thinking about our reactions and our responses, be present in those moments and give yourself the opportunity to give yourself a little grace, I would say as well, because you want to know, is this productive? Is it working towards my goals and my values? Is it protecting my relationships? So what I want you to do, and we won't do it together today, but as you leave the meeting, I would encourage you to think about how you could recalculate. Have you been responding to stress during this time in a way that doesn't feel productive? Have you been responding to stress during this time in a way that feels uncharacteristic of who you are in general? And so think about maybe an activating event that happened that has interfered with those goals, those values, or those relationships. How did your brain interpret those events? What influenced the reaction? And then what's most important to you? Is it that relationship? So do you maybe need to recalculate? If I could put this in terms of an example. So for example, if you have a situation where maybe it's your time to be at work and you need to focus, but you're getting a lot of interruptions. Maybe it's a child knocking on the door, or perhaps it's a partner or a spouse that's wanting some of your attention because they're doing a project and they need your help. You might have a reaction. That could be an activating event for you because in your mind, well, this is my time. I should be working. I should be doing something else. And then perhaps you yell or you have a bad attitude for like the rest of the afternoon. When you're looking back on that, how did your brain interpret that moment? Did you interpret it as, this is my time, why are they bothering me? Or did you interpret it as, oh, they must have just really needed some help right now. I can take a break quickly and come back to this in a little bit. Was it productive? If it was productive, then maybe there was completely nothing wrong with that and you don't need to recalculate. But if it wasn't productive, then maybe that's the time that you sit down and go, what could I do differently next time? And what is, again, that big question is, what is most important right now? Is it this webinar I need to finish, or is it this that my spouse needs a little help at this moment? And I know that sometimes it feels weird to have to prioritize those things, especially when it's coming to children and families. Like you feel like that's always needs to be your priority. And in this time when all of your things, your roles are in one location all the time, it's really hard to, I feel like, delineate where that importance is. And so remember just to give yourself a break. Remember to take some time to think about your thoughts and feelings. Give them some space to breathe and let them happen. Don't bottle them in. And then if you do need to recalculate, take a look at that the next time, or maybe even reach out to someone and ask, hey, this is what I'm thinking. This is how I'm feeling, but I didn't like the way I responded. Could you help me work through it? And so that could be a way to help continue to build your resilience skills.